A very good morning, Gen Zs, Millennials, Gen Xers, and everyone caught somewhere in between. Now, how many of you have experienced this? You've been studying 3 hours straight, nobody checks on you, but the moment you pick your phone, then your mother decides to walk into your room and she says, "So this is what you've been doing all day." Now, I'm usually a victim of this incident almost every time. What about you? Now, as an only child, my mother has never really been just my mother. She has been my best friend, my therapist, my personal cheerleader, and sometimes the unfortunate victim of my endless yapping. I tell her everything. And when I say everything, I mean everything. There have been moments when I have become so comfortable talking to her that I was just this close to reveal the parts of the story that should not be exposed. She has been the listener of my every dream, every complaint, every ridiculous idea, and every crisis that I thought would end my life but somehow disappeared the next day. She has been my biggest support through everything. I'm so lucky to have her, and I love her so much. Now, despite being this close, there has always been one small challenge between us. You see, my mother has a very special memory system, more like a criminal database sometimes. She somehow manages to forget 95% of the good things I do and permanently archives the 5% of my mistakes. If I help her with the house chores for 10 days in a row, they mysteriously disappear from her memory. But if I forget to wash a single plate on a Tuesday afternoon in 2024, now that memory is preserved forever. Well, sometimes she'll say, "You never help me around the house." Never. Never? It doesn't stop there. Now, last week I came home a little later than usual, one single incident. Now, in my mother's memory, this single incident is promoted to a lifelong pattern. Suddenly, I'm the person who's always coming home late. If I happen to enjoy myself this week, having fun the next week is a topic for discussion. Now, this is when I came to this realization that the issue wasn't in her memory. The issue was her perspective. My generation remembers patterns. Her generation remembers exceptions. Maybe my mother isn't unique. Maybe every generation has looked at the next generation and focused a little more on the things that worry them than reassure them. Things that worry them than reassure them. Now, the children nowadays love luxury, they contempt for authority, they have bad manners and love gossip in place of activity. Now, this statement was made by Socrates over 1,000 years ago to describe young people. Now, this would look like a conversation we would have in the modern world. This is when I came to the realization that generation gap isn't really about age. It's about experiences. It has just existed for as long as there have been generations. Now, as a society, we give a label to everything, right? We have baby boomers, Gen X, millennials, Gen Zs, Gen Alpha. Honestly, I never fully understood these categories because every few years, someone comes along, draws a line on a timeline, and millions of people are put into a new box. But the more I thought about it, I realized that these labels are never really about age. Every generation was shaped in the world they grew up in. My mother grew up in a world without smartphones, social media, online shopping, or Google Maps. If she got lost, she asked someone for directions. If she wanted to meet a friend, they made a plan, showed up on time. There was no way to text, "I'm 5 minutes away." For her generation, stability was security. For my generation, adaptability is survival. Now, you might have asked questions like, why don't you just get it? Or why is it so hard to explain this to them? Maybe you've tried explaining social media to your grandparents, convincing your parents that the work in your laptop is actually work. And somehow, all the conversations ends up in the same way. Frustration on both sides. Maybe we are asking the wrong question. Instead of asking, why don't you understand? Perhaps we should ask, how could they? How could they possibly understand a world they never grew up in, just as we struggle to understand a world they grew up in? I've spent so much time trying to make my mother understand why my phone is more than just a phone. Why doesn't one late night mean that I always come home late? I'm pretty sure she has spent just as much time trying to make me understand hers. Why she worries, why she asks so many questions. Perhaps the role of every generation is not to understand the next generation, but to respect it, to give space for it, to listen, to be curious. Because behind every warning, every disagreement, every repeated question is a message which sounds remarkably familiar. I care about you. Thank you so much.